My CEO told me I made him feel alive again, more than his own wife ever did. I knew getting involved with my married boss was wrong, but the connection felt impossible to walk away from, until everything collapsed in a way I never saw coming. A True Life Story by Adnena's Stories.
The first sound I heard that morning was the violent honk of a bus somewhere outside my window. I jumped up from sleep, heart pounding. My hand flew to my phone. 7:02 a.m. I froze. The interview was by 9 a.m. and I lived almost 2 hours away. My stomach tightened. I shot out of bed like a bullet, stumbled into the bathroom, brushed my teeth in record time, and had the quickest shower of my life. While dressing, I kept whispering, "Sophie, today cannot be the day you mess up. Please, God." I pulled on the only decent black skirt I owned, tucked in my shirt while rushing out, grabbed my file and dashed downstairs to catch a tricycle. My hair was barely packed. My face was bare. I looked like the definition of unprepared, and I hated it. But I didn't have the luxury of doing better. I was 25, a fresh NYSC graduate from the University of Enugu. Since passing out, I had become a professional job hunter. Application after application, rejection after rejection, interview after interview. Nothing had worked. My life fell stuck. But that morning, that interview, something in my spirit whispered, "This one is different." Little did I know how right and wrong I was. The traffic this morning had been terrible. We were crawling like snails, and it honestly felt like the universe had chosen that day to frustrate me. I kept checking my phone every 2 minutes, and when the time flipped to 8:45 a.m., my heart sank. God, why today? My interview was at 9 a.m. First impression matters, and how could my first impression be showing up late? The moment the bus slowed, I hurriedly jumped down and waved frantically at the nearest bike. "Please, I'm going to VI," I said, almost out of breath. The bike man said 2K, but at that point I didn't care about the amount. I hopped on immediately, clung to my bag, and prayed silently as we sped through traffic. 10 minutes later, though it felt like 5 seconds, I arrived at the location. When I reached the office complex, I was already sweating and breathless. The building looked like wealth itself, tall, polished, and intimidating enough to make my heart race even faster. I whispered a short prayer and rushed in. Inside the elevator, I bent my head slightly to tuck my shirt properly into my skirt. And that was when it happened. A scent brushed past me, not just any scent, not just a perfume, a presence, warm, clean, masculine, powerful, like a quiet storm wrapped in expensive cologne. I lifted my eyes slowly and saw him, tall, handsome, distinguished looking, like he was carved from confidence itself. His gray hair made him even more striking. His suit sat on him like it belonged to no one else in the world. He was easily in his early 50s, but goodness, the man was fine. He gave a polite nod. "Sorry, may I join you?" His voice was deep and calm. I swallowed. "Yes, sure." When he stepped in, the entire elevator seemed to shrink. His presence filled every corner. He didn't speak again, just stood quietly beside me, checking something on his phone. But my heart refused to be quiet. Who was this man? Trying to compose myself, I asked, "Sir, what floor?" "The 6th, he replied. I blinked. "Oh, I'm going there too." He gave a small smile. "Then we are headed in the same direction." I didn't know the meaning behind those words yet. I didn't know that same direction would become the story of the next few years of my life. When the elevator opened, he stepped out first. His shoulder brushed mine lightly, and my stomach flipped. I shook my head quickly. "Sophie, focus, interview, job, future." But my mind kept drifting. I approached the receptionist, introduced myself, signed the timesheet, and joined the other candidates. But I couldn't focus. That man's scent was still in my nostrils, his face still in my head. When my turn came, my feet felt heavy as I walked into the interview room. 3 people sat behind the table, left, right, and then him, Mr. Elevator. My heart jumped into my throat. He looked up at me, and for a split second, a flicker of recognition crossed his eyes. Then he returned to neutral. The interview started. They asked. I answered. At some point, he asked me a question too. Calm, professional, but the sound of his voice made me nervous in a way I couldn't explain. When it ended, they thanked me and said they would get back to me. I left the office with shaky legs, not because of the interview, but because of him. On my way home, I couldn't stop replaying everything in my head, especially him. Mr. Elevator. It was strange, almost ridiculous, how someone I met for less than 2 minutes could occupy my thoughts this much. I never believed in love at first sight, but whatever this feeling was, it came instantly. I found myself silently praying that they would get back to me about the job, not just because I needed it, but because I wanted the chance to see his face again. Even if I didn't get the job, I hoped our paths would somehow cross once more. I was still lost in my thoughts when the bus driver suddenly shouted my stop, dragging me back to reality. I blinked, gathered myself, and quickly got down from the bus. Then I headed straight home, my mind still a little too full of a certain man from an elevator. For 2 days, I waited. Nothing. I tried to distract myself with more job applications, but nothing worked. I needed this job. Then, on the third evening, after eating dinner and settling on my bed, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I picked. Good evening. Am I speaking with Miss Sophie? Yes. Congratulations, you've been selected for the role. Your resumption details have been sent to your email. My mouth fell open. Are you serious? Yes, ma'am. Please resume next Monday. The call ended. I screamed. I rolled on my bed. I cried. I laughed. I called my parents immediately. We got the job. We, because my whole family had suffered through my job hunting with me. I promised to make them proud. I didn't know the promise would come with a price. The weekend moved like lightning. I bought new clothes. Not too expensive, but decent enough to make me look like a proper PA. I braided my hair, fixed my nails, did light lashes. For the first time in a long time, I felt beautiful. On Monday, I woke up before my alarm. By 6 a.m., I was already showered, dressed, and sitting on the edge of my bed, checking the time every 30 seconds. Excitement was an understatement. When I arrived at the office, the ambience itself hugged me. Everything was clean, peaceful, and professional. I met HR. She briefed me about my duties and directed me to my desk, a small workspace right outside my boss's office. My heart thumped. My boss? Who exactly was he? Was it him? Was it the man from the elevator? I wasn't sure until the door opened and Mr. Elevator stepped in, wearing another immaculate suit, carrying an aura that could silence a room. He didn't look at me at first. He walked straight to his office. But then, as he reached the door, he paused. Slowly, he turned. His eyes met mine, warm, controlled, professional, but curious. You're the new PA. I stood so quickly my chair almost fell. Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. He nodded. Welcome. I'm Mr. Tony. My heartbeat became a drum. So I was right. He was the CEO. The following weeks were confusing. He was strict, yet strangely thoughtful, focused, yet unexpectedly gentle, reserved, yet always aware of my presence. He never crossed the line. He maintained professionalism. But somehow, the space between us kept blurring on its own. Our eyes met too often. His compliments lingered a little longer than necessary. Our conversations grew warmer. Our silences grew heavier. And the problem was, I noticed everything every time he straightened his tie, every time he cleared his throat before speaking, every time he passed by my desk slower than he needed to. And some days, when he is ordering for his lunch, he will ask me to add mine just because you look tired, he would say. Or sometimes asked for my opinion on things PAs were never asked about, or paused mid sentence just to hold my gaze a moment too long. But I wasn't innocent either. I knew what I was doing. I won't pretend I didn't. I started choosing more revealing clothes carefully, nothing too inappropriate, just polished in a way I hoped he'd notice my curves. I wore subtle, seductive perfumes that lingered when I left his office after submitting his meeting schedules for the day. I smiled at his jokes in a way that made my cheeks warm, even when I pretended to be composed. I listened to him with a kind of attentiveness that wasn't entirely professional. And when he began maintaining a stricter distance, it didn't push me away. I fell more in love with him because the more he stayed composed and strict, the more I wanted to know what that composure was hiding. In quiet moments, my curiosity turned into something stronger, something dangerous. I found myself thinking about him outside work more often, wondering what books he read, what food he liked, and why he always wore the same watch. And then one evening, I turned into exactly what heartbreak songs warn you about. A detective. I created a private social media account, searched his name, and followed him on every platform: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and even on YouTube. I scrolled, observed, studied, His posts, his work events, his family, his friends, his interviews, everything. The more I learned it, the deeper I fell. And yes, I knew he was married. The ring wasn't invisible, but feelings are stubborn sometimes. They don't care about logic or reality. Being his PA made it worse. It placed me two steps closer to a man I had no business wanting. Yet every time I handed him a file, or knocked on his office door, or caught him glancing at me before looking away, I felt seen, and I let myself hope for what I shouldn't hope for. One quiet afternoon, while reviewing documents, he finally said it without looking at me. I'm married, you know. My heart started beating fast. My fingers stiffened, but I simply smiled, steady and calm. I know. Part of me hoped that would end whatever was happening between us, but a much bigger part, hoped it wouldn't. Every forbidden story has a turning point. For us, it happened one late evening after a long, exhausting meeting. Everyone had gone home. The office felt too quiet, too dim, too perfect for the kind of tension neither of us was brave enough to name. We stood near his desk, reviewing a document. He stepped closer. I didn't move. Something unspoken wrapped around us. A pull, a question, a line trembling under the weight of our choices. He exhaled slowly. Sophie, you make things harder than they should be. I swallowed, my voice barely above a whisper, then stopped looking at me like that. He closed his eyes, as if shutting out a temptation he'd been fighting for weeks. I've tried. A boldness I didn't recognize rose inside me. Then stop trying to resist this, I said softly. His eyes opened, conflicted, tired, drawn to me in a way he wished he could deny. For a moment, I felt his arms around my waist, and the world held its breath. His hand lifted slightly to my cheek. He pulled me in, and in that moment, my spirit left my body. This is the moment I have been waiting for all my life. Then, I surrendered my whole body to him. Instead of what my heart foolishly expected, he placed a gentle kiss on my forehead. Not on my lips. I wanted a romantic, deep kiss. I felt his warmth, but not the moment I had imagined. I opened my eyes in disbelief. He looked at me with exhaustion and restraint, as if the battle inside him had worn him out completely. In a low voice, he said, Good night, Sophie. You can check out for the day. He walked back to his chair, distancing himself before he broke whatever rule he lived by. I stood there for 2 full minutes, trying to understand what had just happened. The almost, the not quite, the ache. Then I grabbed my bag and left. At home, sleep refused to come. My mind replayed the moment again and again. Did he stop because I wasn't enough? Or because he was trying too hard to be the kind of man he believed he should be? The embarrassment burned so deeply that the next morning I called in sick. I couldn't face him. Not yet. That night my phone buzzed. Mr. Tony. Hi Sophie. I heard you called in sick today. How are you feeling? We'll be traveling to London for a 1 week business trip the day after tomorrow. Let me know if you'll be able to join. London. With him. Just the two of us for a whole week. I sat up instantly, all my earlier shame tangled with new excitement. I replied quickly, too quickly. Good evening, Mr. Tony. Yes, I'll be able to join the trip. I slept that night imagining London streets, conference rooms, hotel lobbies, all the places where something between us might shift again. The next day, I went to the market to pick up the essentials for the trip, choosing clothes that made me feel confident, composed, and ready. Of course, I picked up a few lingerie. On the day of departure, my itinerary already neatly arranged in my email, I met him at the airport. He looked calm, unreadable, but when his eyes met mine, something flickered, and just like that, the beginning of trouble found its way into a new country. London felt different. Maybe it was the cold air, maybe the bright lights, maybe the fact that it was our first time outside Nigeria together. But from the moment we landed, everything between us changed. At the airport, he walked beside me. Not ahead like a boss, not behind like a colleague, but beside me, matching my pace, checking on me, making small jokes he'd never made back home. By the time we checked into the hotel, I could already sense it. We didn't look like two co-workers on a business trip. We looked like a couple on vacation. Our big meeting with the London partners was intense but successful. Mr. Tony was radiant, relieved, proud, almost boyishly happy. And every time he looked at me, there was a warm spark there that he no longer tried to hide. When we returned to the hotel that evening, we stopped at the lobby for a moment, catching our breath after a long day. His smile lingered too long. My heart beat too fast. We were staying in different rooms, side by side on the same floor. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like a line we had both approached quietly for months. I knew he would come into my room tonight. I freshened up, changed into one of my lingerie, and sat on the edge of my bed with a glass of wine. My heartbeat is refusing to calm down. Then came the knock. Soft, familiar. I froze for half a second before walking to the door. "Who is it?" I asked, even though I knew the answer. His voice, steady, low, unmistakably gentle, came through the door. "It's me, Sophie." Just hearing my name in his voice made something inside me wet. I opened the door. He stood there looking almost nervous, almost relieved, like someone who had been holding something in for too long. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. There was just the sound of distant tension, the warm hotel hallway light, and the weight of everything we had been pretending not to feel. Then he stepped inside, and the door clicked shut behind him. The air shifted immediately, warm, quiet, filled with everything we had both been holding back. He pulled me into a deep, breath-stealing embrace, and the world outside simply faded. That night wasn't loud or rushed, just slow, gentle, and full of emotion. We shared intimate moments that brought us closer than ever, the kind that stay with you long after they're over. When we were done having a good time, we found ourselves laughing softly, talking for hours like two people who had finally found comfort in each other. We laughed. We shared thoughts we had never dared to say in the office. There was a softness to him I had never seen before, a gentleness that made the room feel warmer than it was. We sat together, a bottle of wine open between us, our voices low, our hands touching occasionally, like gravity itself was tired of keeping us apart. It was a night I knew I would never forget, not because I didn't know he was married, but because of the bond we now share. Two people who had been circling each other, finally allowing themselves to feel something. I didn't want this to end. Around 5 a.m., he stood up reluctantly. "I should go," he whispered. He paused at the door, looked at me with an expression I couldn't read, and then added softly, "Good night, Sophie." He left quietly, closing the door behind him, but my heart didn't close with it. The next day, we flew back home. Two people from the same company, two adults, holding a night full of emotions neither of us knew how to name. By the time we resumed work, we were no longer pretending. We became close, too close. My colleagues started suspecting us at some point. Flirtations turned into secret meetings. Lunch breaks turned into an office intimate moment. Office hours turned into stolen moments that meant more than they should. We were both free and wild, secretly meeting after work hours. Soon, he started saying things like, "You make me feel alive again. I haven't connected with anyone like this in years. You satisfy me in ways my wife doesn't. And the most dangerous one? I shouldn't want you this much. I'm going to make you my wife." I believed every word. I shouldn't have. Months passed, and somewhere between the late night calls, the quiet hotel meetings, and the soft confessions, our connection became something deeper, something heavier. He grew more protective, more affectionate, more emotionally tied to me in ways he never admitted out loud, but showed in 100 little actions. And slowly, he began hinting at a future. "I wish I had met you earlier. If things were different, you'd be the one standing beside me. I'm thinking of taking us seriously. You deserve better. I'll do right by you, Sophie. Just give me time." I was young. I was in love, and I believed him with all my heart. I built castles in my mind, weddings, trips, a life with my name beside his. He said his marriage was falling apart. He said I made him better. He said he wanted me. And I soaked up every promise like rain. But I didn't know yet that some rains don't water, they flood. Because suddenly everything changed. One evening he called me sounding tense. Sophie, no more hotels. It's becoming risky. Someone could see us. I agreed, not thinking too deeply about it. 2 weeks later, he handed me a set of keys, a four-bedroom duplex in one of the wealthiest estates in the city. Modern, quiet, private. The kind of place I used to admire in magazines. For your comfort, he said. For our privacy, he added. Then came the car, a sleek, shining model that people stared at on the road. Then the allowance, weekly, generous, enough to change everything about my lifestyle. He said, you shouldn't worry about anything. I'll take care of you. And it did. My wardrobe changed, my neighborhood changed, the people who greeted me changed. Even the version of myself I saw in the mirror changed. He came to the house often, sometimes stressed, sometimes thoughtful, sometimes quiet in ways that made me feel like I was the only person he could truly be himself with. He'd sit on my couch like it was the only place he could breathe, drop his tie, relax his shoulders, talk to me about work, life, dreams, and regrets. I became his peace, his escape, his secret, and a part of me loved it. Loved being needed, chosen, protected, loved the life he built around me. Even if it was built in the shadows, I thought his generosity was proof of love, proof of loyalty, proof that he was serious about the future he kept hinting at. I didn't realize then that every gift was not just a blessing, but a chain, a beautiful, shiny, expensive chain. The first time I discovered I was pregnant, I panicked. I told him, expecting shock, maybe fear, but also tenderness. Instead, he said in a quiet, controlled tone, Sophie, this can't happen. My heart dropped. What do you mean? You know I can't risk my family finding out. Please, take care of it. I cried. He comforted me emotionally, but he didn't change his stance. I yielded. I told myself it was temporary, that he'd do better next time, that love required patience. But then it happened again and again. Each time he begged me not to keep it. Each time he apologized. Each time he promised. Soon, I'll fix everything. I would divorce my wife. I believed him until it became a cycle of pain. By the time I turned 29, nothing had changed. He still went home to his wife every night, still introduced her proudly at company events, still shielded his marriage fiercely. But with me, he fed me crumbs. Just for fun time. Weekly allowance that wasn't enough compared to what he gives his wife. Whispers in the dark. Plans that never materialized. Every time I hinted at our future, he changed the topic. Every time I brought up his marital promise, he grew distant. Every time I expressed a desire for stability, he became irritated. But I stayed because I loved him more than he deserved. I started getting too jealous of his wife. I wanted him to divorce her quickly so I could stand openly beside him as his new one and only wife. When I discovered I was pregnant again, this time at 29 going on 30, something inside me shifted. I sat on my bed and whispered, I can't do this again. Not this time. I told him. At first, he was silent. Then he sighed. Sophie, don't do this. I lifted my chin. I want to keep it. His face hardened. All softness evaporated. You're doing this to trap me. What? Tony, you want to ruin everything I've built. My wife will leave me if she finds out, and I can't risk that. So I'm just a secret to you? After everything? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. I saw the truth in his eyes. He loved his wife. He cherished his home. He valued his reputation. And I was simply an escape, a distraction, a fantasy, not a future. When I refused to bend this time, he became cold, snappy, distant, threatening. Sophie, don't ruin my life. He forgot my life was involved too. Our fights became constant. He accused me of wanting to destroy him. I accused him of using me. He said things he shouldn't have. I cried more than I ever had in my life. At work, we pretended. At home, I wept. The man who once promised to marry me as a second wife now treated me like a problem he needed to erase. The man who once said I made him happier than his wife ever did now refused to even look me in the eye. The man who once said he couldn't bear losing me now acted like I was a threat. And the worst part, I realized he had been lying all along. His marriage wasn't suffering. He adored his wife. She was respected, powerful, and influential. She was his pride. I was just his escape. One morning, after weeks of unbearable tension, he called me into his office. He didn't ask how I was, didn't greet me softly the way he used to. He simply said, "Submit your resignation." My heart tore. So this is how everything ends. He avoided my eyes. "I'm sorry, Sophie. This is for the best." "For who?" "You, your marriage, your image." He didn't answer. Something inside of me died instantly. I walked out of his office without another word. 2 days later, I resigned. Not because I was weak, not because I wanted to disappear, but because love had become poison, and I wasn't going down quietly. When I got home, everything hit me at once: the shock, the loss, the betrayal, the secret I was carrying, the pregnancy I hadn't even figured out how to process. My chest felt tight, my thoughts ran wild. The man I trusted, believed, and loved had suddenly cut me off right when I needed support the most. I was overwhelmed with anger, heartbreak, and fear. And in that haze of emotion, I did something impulsive, something fueled by pain rather than reason. I sent his wife a message, picture evidence of our secret relationship, just the truth I had carried alone for too long. A screenshot of my pregnancy test results, a short explanation of the affair he had hidden, a story I could no longer bury inside myself. But it didn't end there. Still burning with hurt, I went to the staff WhatsApp group, the same place where we'd all pretended to be a big corporate family, and typed a message exposing the situation, our private moments, all details about our affair, just the truth I had held in my chest until it suffocated me. Then I exited the group. My phone exploded with calls and messages, colleagues who were asking for details. Some pretend to be concerned, some are eager for gossip, some are already choosing sides. But I ignored them all. Within hours, the story somehow leaked online and spiraled into a trending topic. The reactions were harsh. Men defended him, women insulted me, strangers called me names they didn't hesitate to type. A few people supported me, but their voices drowned in the noise. This was not the outcome I imagined. And then came the worst part. His wife didn't leave him. In fact, in the middle of the chaos, they traveled together on a family vacation, Paris of all places, posting smiling photos by landmarks and dinners with candles. One of her captions read, "The enemy tried to break us, but our love is stronger." I stared at it for a long time, my throat tight, my vision blurry. Not long after, Mr. Tony blocked me everywhere: phone, email, social media. Every door I once had to him was slammed shut. The silence that followed was unbearable. I felt lost, heavy, emotionally drained, like the world had shifted beneath my feet and I was trying to stand on sinking ground. Days passed in a blur, the kind where the curtains remain closed, meals are forgotten, and the mind keeps replaying everything again and again. The life I had built around him collapsed overnight, and all I could do was face the pieces. I kept the pregnancy, and I rebuilt myself piece by piece. My dignity, my peace, my sense of self. It wasn't easy. There were nights I cried until my pillow was soaked. Days I felt empty. Moments I questioned everything about my life, my choices, my heart. But slowly, painfully, I healed. I forgave myself. And with time, I let go of the version of me who thought love had to come through someone else. Several months passed, and with the money I had saved while I was with Tony, I started a small business. Something honest, something mine, something that would support me and the tiny life growing inside me. Did I regret my actions? Yes. Every mistake became a lesson carved deeply into my heart. Will I ever find love again? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But right now, that's not my priority. Right now, I'm focused on raising my baby the right way. I'm focused on building stability, not fantasy. Focused on taking care of myself in a way I should have from the beginning and for the first time in a long time. I felt proud of the woman I was becoming. Looking back, I realized something. Sometimes the person you think is your destiny is just a detour. Sometimes the man who says you're better than his wife doesn't actually mean it. Sometimes being chosen in secret means you were never chosen at all. I lost years, but I gained wisdom. If my story helps even one woman avoid my mistake, then none of it was in vain. Thank you for watching to the end. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like for more interesting stories.